Hey, everybody, and welcome to the last IT podcast in the world. Hey, Derek.
Hey.
Derek Johnson over there. David Wheat over here from Alt-CIO Consulting. Been a while. We've had some panel kind of podcasts and stuff, and just the two of us. Yeah, I like the cozy. Comfortable slippers. That is Derek Johnson as my co-host. You can probably see why I was such a hit with the ladies with my metaphors.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
obvious.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm wearing my Alt-CIO Consulting hat. And for the audio listeners, I'll just tell them you're wearing a really striking, handsome hat. It's all black, brim and main surface, and it's got kind of an epic Knights, Knights, with a swoop over it. Very nice. And that is from what team?
Nuclear Knights. So my son's homeschool high school baseball team.
Wow. Well, they've got someone's got good logo stylings for their team.
That they do. It looks good. And you got the nuclear on the back.
Yeah, and what's the nuclear connection?
The organization that kind of sponsors it. One of the founders' last names works well for nuclear and radioactivity. So
there's not really like a nuclear bomb factory that's sponsoring your kids. Okay, terrific.
Right.
Yeah,
also,
I feel better about that.
Nukes and baseball and hitting go together pretty well. So
sure. Yeah. Nuke would be a good first name for a slugger.
Right.
Or who's Duke Nukem? I've heard, what's that?
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't say. I don't even know I should know what it's from. That
was like a video game, right? 90s. I think I learned it was I played like a 2D 90s video game version of it.
Okay.
And I learned there was like a later version that was maybe a little more risque that I did not know about.
So you were protected from that for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, well, we're already well into our banter segment, and so I'm going to spring one on you because this one's all banter, nothing to do with IT. But I think my question has more to do, if I may say, Derek, with your people than with my people. And we'll talk about what I mean. So there are some people in this world that insist on backing into parking spots, grocery stores, fast food restaurants, banks, schools. They'll pull in the parking lot. They'll stop what they're doing. They'll reverse and back in to their parking spot. One, I don't understand it. I'd like you to help me understand it. Two, I've got a scenario that I'll allow. Isn't that gracious of me?
Okay.
And one that I really don't understand. But what's the deal with? Are you a back-in parker?
I'm not.
Are your people?
Yes.
So let's say it's often
see two ways are going with that, and they're both true. So
all your people, the Venn diagram that is your people.
Yeah.
Terrific. And so help me understand the backing in. Is it
I don't know. So I'm trying to think, be generous and think of good reasons. I
love this about you.
I have seen guys with larger trucks.
Yes.
Where you will not fit in the parking spot and behind the lines unless you back in and can hang your tail over has your back wheels to the curb, your tail over that. That has its own problems because you're hanging that over the sidewalk.
Right.
But you are at least parking legally, and I can see those situations where you kind of have to. And maybe they feel more comfortable. I don't know. I don't understand it. Especially in age of backup cameras, it makes it easier, but it also makes it easier to back out when you need to go. So
for sure. So I've got a theory. It's really so large. I'll allow is large trucks, especially like Ford F-250 long bed. Super crew cab long bed. These things are enormous. I was told by someone, because I must have asked someone else before this in my life, that like a shopping cart, if you flip a shopping cart around, you have the steering wheels next to your hands instead of where they normally go. You're a lot more agile. So in order to even park one of these big vehicles, when they're steering wheels,
you can't get that sharp of turn.
Yeah, you can finesse it in better than when your steering wheels are the first thing that goes into the parking lot. And I will completely allow that. It's the Honda Accords I don't understand.
Right.
But it is cultural. Would you agree with me? It's cultural.
Yes.
There's some kind of badge of something I don't fully understand.
I'm in command of my vehicle and I am good. I can back it up well. I mean, the other valid reason I think is if you're going to rob a bank, like it's a
Fast
faster
getaway.
getaway, right?
Fast getaway.
So
Yeah.
respect for that if you're
Yeah,
going to
total
commit a
respect. If you
crime.
if you can like connect it to something that I can respect, no problem. Big
Yeah.
truck allowed.
Hmm.
Bank robbery getaway. I
Right.
hope you don't hurt anybody, but allowed. I understand it.
Of
Okay.
all the
So
things you're doing, that's the least problematic. So
now I'm going to see you and raise you. This is really the source of my question. So I know that because Derek used to live here near Windsor, Colorado. I'm from Windsor, Colorado. Hey, at Windsor, Colorado Chamber of Commerce, feel free to sponsor me or something if you'd like. Our little it's a little town. There's like a 3-block downtown
down. Yep.
and it's got 2 lanes. It's just a 2-lane road, only not divided by median, only a yellow paint stripe. And naturally, like most roads like that, the parking slots are angled towards traffic. You wouldn't make them perpendicular; that'd be awful.
No.
So they're slanted to make
Sure.
them easy to get into, or I call it maybe herringbone, the herringbone
Yeah.
pattern. So the other day, I was driving through my town, and I looked over, and some dude had backed into
What?
the angled parking spot, and I thought, okay, that's just too far. Like,
That's so bad on so many levels.
yeah, so think about that. The only way to do that would be like block off 2 lanes of traffic, endanger everybody. Unless, again, we're always trying to think the best. You've taught me
Hmm.
this. You've softened my hard heart. What if it was 3 a.m. and nobody else was around,
Right.
and I was going to rob a bank?
And I was going to rob a bank.
Yeah, and it wasn't a large truck. It was just kind of a
It's just
medium-sized crossover SUV.
and I would think that's just bad on all fronts. That's a bad entry and a bad exit. Like,
And I've seen someone do the same thing in a Walmart parking lot. You know how they're also angled.
oh yeah,
They insisted on like contorting their. So hey,
don't
I think it's like everything in life, moderation. Like
right.
like don't do it when it's dumb.
I actually witnessed a fight. My wife and I witnessed a fight over this. We were in Dallas last week at a Shields, and the person in front of us had backed their car in. We parked conventionally. The person in front of us had backed their SUV in, and the wife was yelling at her husband because she could not extricate their stroller from the back, which is what they needed. Like they didn't need access to the hood. They didn't need to get to the engine and check the battery. They needed to get their stuff out to go to the store, and they couldn't until we left. And so there was a
Oh,
some
you were the
conflict.
car blocking them.
We were the car blocking them in our spot, in
Oh.
a valid spot that we were well within our boundaries, and
Mm.
they I can't remember if they were leaving or coming into the store, but they could not do it until they had the car around them had moved because of
So
the
it was a
choice they made.
marital fight. At first I thought you were going to
Yes.
describe a fist fight.
Yeah, yes, it was not a violent altercation. It
All
was
right.
a
Yeah,
heated.
so I appreciate that this topic had an angle to a recent story for you. Yeah, it
Yeah,
didn't work out for them in that case. Let me just say this as gently as I can. I think one of the reasons you and I mostly park conventionally, I'll admit I'm not a great backer upper. I don't mind. My manliness is like I can't back up. I'm not that
yeah.
great.
I'm not a mater.
But right. Let's just say that we are also maybe secure enough in our manhood that we don't need to please some bro out there that expects us to back our
Yes, I
vehicles.
think
And I
there's
think
a
there's a little bit of bro culture in backing up. I don't want to throw stones.
absolutely. I think
Okay.
that's true.
All right, that's probably a bad note to end the banter section on, but we will end that. On that note, we will end the banter section. Move on to some maybe some AI wins. We'll talk about that and some new twist on bad IT right after this musical interlude. Thanks, everybody. Hey, everybody! Welcome back to the last IT podcast in the world. We're sort of like AI boosters. We're not worried about the end of the world so much. And so we thought it'd be fun to talk about like a little AI win we'd had in the last week or two, or since the last time we talked. Do you have any like AI helped you, was great, or something was good in your life?
Yeah, because I see a lot of places where the sales pitch for AI is actually something AI is really bad at, like writing a birthday card to a colleague. Um, and so I think it even made me more hesitant to use it because you see some of those examples, and so I've started using it more. Had a really good win just with a coding project of I had a search method that was slow or seemed to be not as performant as I wanted, and pasted the code in there. There was nothing proprietary. I think that's always a concern with AI of throwing your stuff in there that's got trade secrets. This was nothing sensitive or anything like that. Was able to throw that in there and get really good immediate feedback and an explanation of here's things I would change. Here's why that's better. Um, just really to put some polish on that code and do it really quickly um, and then you sort of internalize the what you learned from it too. So you're going to write that faster next time because so um, yeah, it was in a technology that wasn't one I was familiar with, so it kind of let me get up to speed faster on it. Yeah, so
Yeah. Awesome.
simple, fast win.
Yeah. Terrific. I have I'm not a coder, as you know, but I'm a no coder. I'm a low coder. I'm a midnight smoker. No, what's that? I don't know. That wasn't right. Anyway, uh, I was doing something in Power Automate, not because I needed to. It was more for like a demo for a client. I wanted to show them something. And I don't use, Microsoft Power Automate, the no code, low code, sort of like orchestration and workflow and integration, lots of things it can do. And I didn't know how to do a thing. And there was a Copilot, their branded thing right in the window. And I asked it how to do this certain thing. And it needed to do a for loop, which is a technical thing. And it built my for loop for me, and it put the thing I needed inside the for loop, and it gave me a way to get out of the for loop, which is sort of esoteric and semi-technical. But I would have read documentation and tested and
Mm-hmm.
tried, and it worked. It worked the first time, like it did
Yeah.
exact. I had to add a couple variables to it because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Very nice. That's very shallow into the pool. Let me tell you another example. We use for this platform on this podcast, we are recording on a platform called Riverside.fm. It's a very common recording and editing podcast platform, especially for video. I like it. And a few months ago, they rolled out this thing called Magic Clip. So after we would get done with the recording, let me tell you, the worst part of editing and getting an episode ready for me, like the full episode is easy for me to edit, really easy. The hardest part is to go pick out the 60-second clip I'd like to share on LinkedIn.
Okay.
That's sort of like it's coherent, but it's short. And maybe, it's got some of me talking, some of you talking, and mostly it's funny because I don't really care. Like, and so I have to watch the whole thing again with like, okay, got to find, and sometimes it takes forever. It takes twice as long as editing the full episode to make a
Mm-hmm.
60-second clip as a 35-minute clip. But they came up with something on Riverside called Magic Clips. After you do your recording, you can say like, do you want to generate some magic clips? And you say, I sure do. And you say, hey, what's a keyword you'd like to find in the magic clip? And would you like it to be 30 seconds or 60 seconds or longer than 60 seconds? And maybe if you want to focus on a speaker. And I say a keyword and I say 60 seconds and I say go. And it generates 10 sample clips for me from our content.
Okay.
And now here's the rub. One out of every two podcasts, I either get exactly what I want out of one of those magic clips, or it gives me the inspiration to go back into the editor and get what I want and do it myself.
Go 15 seconds before it started. Stay a little
Correct. Like go get a
longer.
word it cut off. Exactly right. And then one out of two times, 50% of the time, it's like, none of this helps me. But
Hmm.
before, it was 100% of the time me manually doing it. So I know that's very esoteric. If anyone's podcasting out there, they're probably maybe slightly interested, but these are kind of the time, like the idea starter, the jump starter, the how about this, kind of stuff. So pretty cool. It's been pretty helpful. I do it every time,
Yeah.
and then it just takes me 5 minutes to go through those 10, and I either have something or I don't, and then I know what I'm up against. Very nice.
That's awesome.
You know, everything, including our dishwasher upstairs, we've talked about dishwashers before and kitchen sinks. The reason those things are the way they are is because the most valuable thing to human beings is time. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I think we're both talking about, the value of using AI to save time. So that's really great. Good. Okay. Also kind of squeezed into the segment, hashtag bad IT, our normal hashtag bad IT segment. Only the twist is this is Hashtag bad IT guy. This guy was IT. Normally we talk about technology that frustrates us or software that's clunky. This is a dude
Doing
who worked in
something bad.
IT bad. Here's the headline from my state. Colorado man pleads guilty to stealing $1 million. You must always put your pinky to
Yes.
your lip like that with government credit card. And so I'll save you the story, but this was an IT employee who worked for the U.S. in the IT department for the U.S. Geological Survey here in Lakewood, Colorado. And over the period of about, well, I think it was like 12 years, I'll read the quote because I find this funny. Here's the quote. Montoya used his government issued credit card to defraud the government of approximately, we're just spitballing here, $1,223,000 and $9.42.
Roughly.
I was like, yeah, maybe you don't know the word meaning of the word approximately, but you don't need to go to the penny when you use the word approximately.
Like
Anyway,
$1.2 million would work
1.2
great.
million. Thank you, Derek.
Yes.
Approximately
One
$1.2
million
million
two hundred
dollars
twenty-three thousand.
over 15 years. And I thought, of course, duh, David, it would have been so easy if I had been an unethical IT leader back in my corporate days to defraud my employer with fake IT spin, because how would they know what's
Right.
quality IT? Here's the other funny part of the story that I found funny. Here's the three. He made three fictitious companies. He created them like LLCs or something. I don't know how he did it. I don't know if he registered them, but these names will be kind of funny to the IT crowd. I don't know if they will be to anyone else. The first one was called Chiphead Solutions. That could be a legit IT
I
company.
like that. Yeah.
Chiphead, Propellerhead Solutions.
Yeah.
You know,
I wouldn't bat an eye at it.
I
Like,
would like, yeah, that's legit.
okay.
Amazon Resale. He made a company called Amazon Resale.
That's sneaky.
Oh, hey, say hello
Hey,
to your
hey.
dog. Hey, dog. Amazon Resale. And then the final one, Oracle Outlet. That one cracks me up.
I love that.
Oracle Outlet. The funny part about Oracle Outlet is Oracle never sells anything at a discount, ever.
Right. I got this discounted Oracle license.
So, he made up these three company names, which give me much more joy than it should. I admit it. This podcast is just for me. But Chiphead Solutions, Amazon Resale, and Oracle Outlet. Then he charged things on his corporate company issued credit card to those companies. And probably no one ever said, hey, what's this for? And he would have, if they did, he probably said equipment. I don't know.
Equipment, like supplies.
Yeah. Submitted altered and fictitious receipts, invoices, and other documentation purporting, that's a good word,
Yeah.
purporting that they were for IT related items or services. And in 15 years, nobody ever said,
$1.2 million.
yeah, approximately.
So about 80, 90,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Just supplementing your, I don't know, if you're a government employee IT, I don't know. It's probably,
Did you catch what he used the money for?
oh, right. Tell me. I forgot about that.
Well, it was like
Uh,
toys and vintage
vintage
things.
toys. Vintage toys.
So who's
Hey,
got a
first of
90?
all, when this guy's walking into court, he's got like a holster, like a big holster phone
Okay.
holster. I'm like,
He's
dude, look, it's bad enough that you're giving IT a bad name by stealing from your employer, but did you have to wear
the
like
holster
the
phone.
big holster for your phone that kind of bounces around
Oh
and
my
spend your
gosh.
money on vintage toys? By the way, Derek, that if it's vintage toys, what that really means is action figures.
Yes, yes. Who's got a 90K a year vintage toy budget?
It's got to be collectible like
I feel
superhero
like if you're
DC
gonna risk
Marvel
your
figurines.
don't condone theft, but if you're gonna risk your job and go in prison, I would want something more out of it than vintage toys. But
Yeah, exotic vacations,
yeah, and you
something.
should live
Okay.
in a pretty nice house. I don't know. It's
Yeah, I
a
don't know either. All right. Well, that's our middle section. Some good AI, some bad IT. The bad IT guy, not doing my peeps any favors, our peeps any favors, both in reputation
and
and
also a new
then
reason that your Concur expense reports are going to be that much harder now.
right. Right. Yeah, and everyone's gonna like add policies to their stupid Concur expense reports. Totally. All right. So, all right. After we take a short break, we'll be back with the big idea. We're going to talk about the art. Yes, the art of IT when we come back. So right back after this break. Thanks, everybody.
Time for the segment called The Big Idea. The Big Idea. The Big Idea. Serious topic, but we'll still have fun. We'll still have fun with The Big Idea. Better IT, hands in the air cause we like IT, that's great. I'm not a famous rapper, but I can help you with technology. I can show you how to pick software.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the last IT podcast in the world and The Big Idea. And this is, I've decided, Derek, we're kind of a philosophy of IT. We're not walking people through like hardcore solutions for like tuning their Oracle database or
Right.
like coding strategies. We're sort of up in the philosophy level, I think. And so this one fits in with that. So I was thinking about this, and I've told you about this, the art of IT, and I've got a couple things there, but it's more about the creative side, I think, of the people we think of as IT staff, nerds, people, whatever we want to, and how I think it's an underappreciated both from a hiring and maybe to the outsiders, how much creativity it takes. We think of creativity or art as like sculptures or oil paintings or things you would go to a fancy hoity art museum in a kind of urban center to see. But there's a couple angles, I think, in IT where sort of the integration of creativity and art kind of come together. Any thoughts on that before we kind of kick it off?
No, I think it's a great point. Like for people interested in IT careers, don't foreclose it because you consider yourself more of a creative person, more of a verbal person than a math whiz. Like obviously there's math, you need to understand some of those things, but yeah, don't foreclose yourself from it if you're a creative wordsmith person.
Yeah.
It's lots of opportunity there.
Yeah, I've kind of broken this into a couple of different buckets. So when we think of art, we often think of images, the things that are hanging on the wall, paintings and sculptures or whatever, just sort of images. And then I would say prose. I've got the second half is prose, the words that people write, poetry, that kind of artwork. And those are going to be our two big IT buckets. So when I think about kind of the overlooked art side of IT, because of kind of my leadership level roles and what I currently do as a consultant, I often have to convey in essentially PowerPoint decks hard or convoluted concepts in an easy fashion to non-technical staff.
Right.
And I am not like Jeff Bezos in so many ways. He's the one that like wants PowerPoint to be all words, no pictures.
Oh yeah.
Like sent it to them the day before as a pre-read. I'm like, I don't know, that's like Word, but anyway. So I have over time gravitated to more and more pictures on my PowerPoint slides, and by pictures I mean diagrams, boxes, labels, showing interaction, whatever, and also some words, and then maybe another slide separated with words. And then I talk a lot to those pictures. And so a lot of them are like, so one piece of art that we talk about that's kind of difficult and it's a skill is kind of showing like system landscapes and how things relate to each other. You've got multiple systems, they talk to each other. There's maybe some external systems, there's maybe some people involved, and how you sort of can put that in front of people so they begin to understand interconnectivity and how the plumbing works, I think is something that takes skill. And the simpler you can do it, I used to look for all the right icons like gears and like lightning bolts and I just do boxes and arrows now,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sort of like, by the way, Picasso used to be a realist and then he became an abstractist.
Oh, really?
I'm sort of in my more abstract phase. Did I just compare myself to Pablo Picasso? I did.
The Picasso with PowerPoint slides.
Right. Yeah. It's all my people are, like their faces are juxtaposed across their own faces. Anyway, so I know that sounds esoteric, but like, have you sat through bad PowerPoint slides before that it's basically all words, people reading at you? Or I've seen like even people do try to make images, they're awful. Like they try to put boxes and they're unreadable. So I do think it's a real skill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think filtering that information down, like you said, and you might have the same system that you need to present to 3 different audiences, and it's 3 different diagrams, because maybe it's different levels of detail. Maybe this presentation needs to just focus on the hardware or the
Mm.
services they're using in the cloud that they're involved. Maybe this one's going to want to look at user interactions and user flow. And so you can describe the same system for a different audience. And if you put all that in there, it's a muddled mess.
Yeah.
I think that's a hard thing for us as technical folks, is like to know when to cut off that detail so that you don't just bury it with complexity of, like you said, if it fits on a slide, it probably can't be more than about 10 shapes.
Right.
And if you need more detail, you probably need another slide that drills into that detail. And
For sure. Like this is the high level. This is the next
here,
level, or a
let's zoom in
subset
on
of the
this.
next
So let's
level.
look at this aspect of it.
Yeah.
And so being able to sort of curtail that detail, but still show enough and show what's happening it's not as simple as, here's a system, this is the right diagram for it. It's
Yeah.
not that way.
Yeah. I give a cybersecurity presentation quite a bit that I've kind of made a staple of one of my offerings. And on one of the slides in the middle, there's a picture of a laptop, just kind of a nice image of a laptop. And then I've got like 6 bubbles all around it that talk about the things that go into protecting the information on that laptop,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of like the dollar figure per user. And I could have like put that in a table, all words, but there's just something about like, we're securing this device. And I prefer, if I could do like just a table of data, which is fine, or just words, I'd prefer to show an image and then have these like graphics around it, and then me talk to it. So that abstraction. So part of it is like system diagrams, system interface diagrams. Again, depending on your audience, high level, mid level, low level, appropriate. But man, trust me, I've sat through so many of these things that some people don't have that art gene, and
Right.
They're maybe not, let's say, the Pablo Picasso of system diagram. Maybe there's something else. So that's one thing, and kind of along those lines in images, there are sort of a few. And again, we're kind of in the presentation images. I like swim lane diagrams, or sometimes called functional.
Should
They're
kind of
kind of
show each path or user and their
each
interaction.
row vertical stripe is a function, a job function.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of it shows how, accounting starts the flow and they do a thing, and then they pass it off. And the next row is, maybe marketing to validate something. And then below that is ops. And then it shows the flow. I think that's also very useful to show kind of organizational interplay across a process.
Mm-hmm.
Very useful. I think that's a very useful tool used properly. Again, any thoughts on swim lanes?
Yeah, I think
Flow charts are very similar.
Yeah. On that note, I think an interesting thing to know about being in IT is that you might be the first person to have to discover or document that process.
Right.
It exists, but until you have to systematize it or put it in code, build a project around it, you have to be the first one to let's actually figure out what happens to this invoice as it goes through your organization. And not a knock on accounting operations. Everyone's doing their thing, but a lot of times we're the first one to have that systemic view of it.
That is such a good point. So let's dive into that. So this is such a good point. There is a process. It exists. But when they bring in someone that's got to improve it, accelerate it, code to it, understand it, making some kind of drawing, let's not worry about whether it's a swim lane diagram or something else, making some kind of drawing with that interplay as you understand it, as the outsider who's going to help it understand it, also helps you put it in front of people and say, is this right? Like, do I have this right? And then they say, now that I see it, you forgot a step where there's another function that does something. So this kind of almost iterative art, but the visual, which triggers people to think about things in a different way than if you just prattled on over and over, with words. Yeah,
it's
really good point.
Glide over complexity with just a lot of words. And
super important to a developer or a system configurator or an ERP implementer, so that they can understand that and they can make the system work the way it should. That's a really terrific point, Derek.
Right.
Yeah. Let's stick in the artwork area and go to a different area. So I'm a big fan of companies that have an analytics forward culture. They see the value of data and they sort of have an internal data and analytics practice, creating dashboards, reports, visualizations, which is the kind of the cool word these days for dashboards.
Yeah.
I think so. In that space, you've got a whole different other set of art, and that is kind of the art of choosing the right visualization to represent a specific kind of data.
Right.
And I really appreciate a well crafted visual that's telling us how the company is doing, how the quality department is doing, how the safety department is doing, what the, any customer churn, whatever the metric is, putting it up in a visual, data plus visual, I think is also an unappreciated part of IT art.
It is. Yeah. I think selecting which visualization like illuminates a particular metric is not always easy. I mean, there's sometimes simple rules of, oh, that's a pie chart, that's a bar chart. But I mean, the proliferation of chart types available with different tools, and because I think you've seen the bad ones where it's like the pie chart that everything's 100%, or
Right.
it does what I don't. And this doesn't help me at all, or um, line charts that don't make sense. I think
Right.
um, just being able to try different charting types and to think and to kind of reason through that of what are we trying to learn from this piece of data,
Mm-hmm.
not just here's a chart, here's a chart, here's a chart, but what's really the value we're getting out of this? What's the decision
Yeah.
we're making?
Value in what you learned. I love what you said there, Derek, because the goal of picking that right visualization and representing that data by the way, I think it's beautiful. I think when people do this, it literally is beautiful.
Mhm.
It's a form of beauty of like really striking that balance of here's the data, here's the visualization that does what you just said. It leads us, it doesn't bury itself with too much information. It brings out the data we need to see so that we can ask questions about it.
Right, right.
Like why is the Western region so far behind in their safety metrics or in their sales, quantity compared to, whatever it is. But if you do it wrong, if you do it unartfully with the wrong image choice or the wrong data or putting it together poorly, which some people do, then it's just buried. You don't have any
Yeah.
chance to see what you want. A very good point.
And again, the alternative of a really good spreadsheet that just has lots of great data, but no one's looking at that at a glance, or very few people are looking at a glance and seeing the trend they need to see, or the red flag that's there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's a couple, by the way, if you want to really get into the art of data and visualizations, there's two main authors. I know their last names. Few, I think it's Stephen Few, Few,
Mm-hmm.
and a guy named Edward Tufte. I don't know if the last E is pronounced or not. Tufte, Edward Tufte. They both have books on just sort of the power of the right visualizations and how to use them and sort of why they're bad. Stephen Few is sort of famous for he doesn't like pie charts at all. Like he banned if you were talking to Stephen Few, like don't ever bring up a pie chart. He would throw his drink in your face. I don't know Stephen Few. He's probably very hey at Stephen Few. I apologize if you're not the kind of person that would throw your drink in the face of someone who brought up pie charts. But my point is there are entire scholarly books written about data visualization. That's how serious of an art it is, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And these guys are some of the two most famous. Okay. So that's good. So again, the topic is like how we can use visuals as good IT practitioners slash, dare I say, artisans, the artisanal approach to IT. But when we get into prose, and this is more your area, prose, the written word, and by that I mean kind of like the under the hood's like code written word.
Yeah, it's a sneaky thing. Like we talked about, like we always envision code as this math heavy, um, hard and fast rules, and there is that. But I think there's even blogs about it. Like the hardest things in software engineering are like off by one errors and naming. And
Mm.
naming things is hard, especially because a lot of this,
Variable naming. Yeah.
variable naming, class naming, because it's abstract, right? Like you know, in a lot of things we do, they're obvious. If you're building cars, you have a car, you have wheels, right? But if you get into sort of these more abstract, handlers of things in code, being able to think in that way abstractly, and it does matter because if you name it better. You will think of it better when you use it down the road. It'll make sense of what does this still make sense as a class? Should it be broken down into two things because the name doesn't really make sense anymore? It's a little thing, but yeah, it's a huge part of it. Writing your code in a way that's concise and readable. Do I need to deal with that?
No, we're going to keep the dog in. We talked about it. It was off camera. Like, no, the dogs are welcome here. No, we're dog friendly on the pod. Keep talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what that alerts you. Yeah. So we've got.
Unless you need to.
I might need to. Hold on just a second. Sorry about that. He was alarm barking because the cat was somewhere he didn't like, and
protective of the cat, or no?
No, angry at the cat.
Angry at the cat. Sorry, that makes more sense. Okay, good. Anyway, where were we? We were
talking about prose.
Prose, yeah.
So we're naming objects, we're naming classes, and they're not always obvious in an abstract world. The more abstract, the more complex the code, the more that does become abstract. And things like how you structure your code, where it's readable, where you're doing things that the person that's going to go read this code after you needs to be able to understand it. And I think there's some of that's not complicated naming, but like the old school, variable x equals blah blah blah, and variable y equals this, and we'll increment I, and it makes us feel real smart because it's really concise code, but nobody's going to come after you and read that and understand it.
Right.
So naming things clearly and well, and again, it is a little more of a creative pursuit than you would think. It's not always obvious what this thing should be called in that abstract world. So I think that's a huge deal for.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about elegance. I use that word. We normally tie that, but there's this idea of elegance in code, and we would normally call that the elegant solution.
Yeah.
Describe for our listeners what an elegant, just at a high level, what you would know, like when you opened up someone else's code and you saw something, what would let you know that it is the elegant solution versus a non-elegant solution?
Yeah. So the thing I would notice for an elegant solution would be, first of all, like how well I can read it, right? So if you are new to the code and you haven't been introduced and had a long time to onboard, that you can go, it's sort of self-describing. You open it up and you can see that this step happens, this step happens. Where do we save invoices? Oh, that's over in here in the invoice class, and not, the names are clear and obvious when they can be. That you read through it and it makes sense. And then there's that's sort of the readable side. There's also some of this is done by tools now, so you don't have to do this, but are you styled consistently? Are you always using tabs or always using spaces? I don't care which one. It's tribal fights, but just be the same.
Yeah.
Are you commenting? Are you using comments to sort of in code line, typing instructions there that aren't executed by the PC, but are maybe helpful to understand it?
Right.
Are you using that sparingly? Like it shouldn't be just littered with it. Because if you need a lot of those, you're not doing something right. But
you shouldn't say variable X. X is a variable.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So tell me, speaking of which, how about conciseness? Have you ever written 100 lines of code, to solve a problem, or 200 or 300, and then looked at the code and realized that you could make it 50? Yeah.
And one way to think of code is it's a little bit like in business, it's inventory, right? So every line of code you write is something that can break. So if you can do it in 20, if you can do it in 20 lines of code instead of 100, you've reduced your places it can break by fourfold, right? So everything you do, you can do wrong. So if there's a chance to not do it, that's great. Avoid repetition, so you don't have places where you've repeated code where, I forgot to fix that bug over here. I just fixed it on this one place. The more that you have that repetition kind of wrung out of the code, that's a huge win. I think that's readability. Is it concise? You can even sort of read through it and see, is it, they talk about cyclomatic complexity and stuff as you read through code. How many paths are there through it? So if you have a loop and inside that loop, there's 5 if statements and 2 of them are nested inside each other. And again, you think from a testing perspective, you've got to go test if you're going to cover all of it, you've got to test once through the loop down this trail of if true, Now back, if that's false, go down here. And those expand really fast. So
Right.
the more you can kind of trim out that complexity, reduce those paths through the code, the better.
Yeah. Or make them, instead of embedding them, maybe they're a call to something else, and
Yeah.
then they come back as a, I don't know that I haven't coded in a long time.
There's rules of thumb, like, and again, some people are very dogmatic about these, but like keeping your methods or functions to less than like 30 lines.
Yeah.
If you can't do it in 30 lines, you need to break it out into more things.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can abuse that, but it's helpful.
By the way, there's a book unrelated on regular prose, like regular writing, not code writing. There's a book called "If You Can Talk, You Can Write." It's kind of an inspirational book that quotes a lot of authors that have written books. And I think it was James Michener. I might have that wrong, but they quote all these writers on like the painful, hard process of writing, of which code is a form of writing, and it is hard. But these are just English prose writers. And he had a statement. He said, I'm an average writer, but I'm a terrific rewriter.
Yes.
And his point was like, I lay a bunch of words on the page. And when I go back and look at them, even in English prose, I think like, this is extraneous. Mm-hmm. I'm being sort of showy here. I don't need these big words, I'm muddled here. And he would rewrite it maybe multiple times. Mm-hmm. So I will tell you, in my experience, in my career, the best developers were the ones that would write the 300 lines of code and have the want to make it more concise, more elegant, more prosaic, more artistic. The not so good developers were like, yeah, good enough. It works. Right? Yeah. Works on my machine is the old joke. And so like, it's a complete parallel, in my opinion, that writing code and making it elegant or concise or direct or modular, or whatever the right words are, so that it's more stable, easy to test, easy to read, easy to troubleshoot, and probably performs better, frankly. That is an art. Like, it should not be dismissed as engineering. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk in the software world about craftsmanship, and kind of that's sort of their definition of blending that, of like, it's not a pure enough art. Like, we're in the commercial space. Our Correct. Stuff has to make someone money or save someone money. It has to be productive. It has to do what it's supposed to do. So it can't just be beautiful to hang on a wall in general. Maybe someone has projects like that. I haven't had those. So it has to be functional, but it also can be beautiful and elegant, and it does make it better. So if you think of, a handmade item versus a cheap Temu purchase item, right? This table is going to last you forever. This table is from IKEA and it's going to last, a year. It's sometimes there's a reason for that. Sometimes there's a reason for that. That's cheaper. That's get it out the door. But there is that craftsmanship that this will last. This will work for a while.
That is a great word to close out the artistic segment of IT by using the word workmanship, which we would also associate with kind of the attention to detail, craftsmanship, artsmanship, artisan approach, using your creative skills, doing it well. And we know in our career, in our IT field, there are people that are better artists and artisans and craftsmen or craftspeople. And there are some that are worse, and it's a real thing. And I think you said something really important earlier. And we'll move on to the what did you learn today here in a second. But I love what you said about the career. If we were being listened to by anyone who's young, probably not. Thinking about a career in IT, probably not. But like, don't sleep on how invigorating it can be to wake up every morning and to do artistic things. Not only problem solving, which is it's logic, that is different. I'm not looping that in, but getting to see your work be creative, even if no one else ever sees it, is kind of a kick for a certain personality, for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
Good. Awesome. Love it. That was great. Okay. Derek, you go first. What'd you learn today on the pod?
I always struggle with these because there's so much we learned.
I'll go first and give you some time to think.
Yeah, okay.
So it was a little bit off camera. I'm not sure it's going to make the cut, but I learned that your personal image consultant has given us feedback that you and I will joke about the dog sometimes on our podcast, but nobody can hear the dog. And I just realized it's because I have a setting on my editing that says eliminate background noise. So all this time I've been eliminating the dog barking, not knowing it. And you and I are talking about a phantom dog barking, and people are probably going like, what was that about? So anyway, I don't think it's going to make the cut, but that did happen, and I
Yeah.
did learn it on the pod. And shout out to your PIC for that nice editing tip.
She's always got good feedback. So
For sure.
yeah. No, I did learn that David is very annoyed by backup parkers. I think this is back to David's making people waiting, people making
Right.
David wait for things, right? Like, hold on, I have to back into my spot. Everyone
I
must
was
wait.
walking into a Starbucks yesterday, and there was a car that was parking. And so I thought, oh, I know how they're parking, so it's safe for me to walk. Nope, I was wrong because they were backing, which
Yeah.
means they backed into sort of my path. And I was mildly irritated. I wouldn't say it was super irritated. I didn't do anything outwardly visual. I just waited my time. I don't understand it. I think it's allowed. Don't forget, it's allowed for certain use cases.
Right.
Big truck, bank robbery.
Right. It is a
Yeah.
little bit selfish that I'm going to make everyone back out or everyone wait while I back in so that my exit is slightly easier. Right.
And by the way, don't forget, it could cause a marital fight. That's another thing we've learned.
Yes.
You shouldn't park backwards because you could end up in a parking lot fight with your
Yes.
spouse.
I guess the corollary reason is if your car battery is about to die, you might want to have your hood out. So that could be suspect car.
I love how you've expanded our bank robbery, large truck. You think you've got a battery on the fritz.
Yeah.
These are permitted.
Those are permitted.
By the way, in herringbone or angled parking, never permitted. Not even for a bank robbery, not for a battery, not for a long truck. Okay, good.
That is just the worst of all possible worlds.
Always great to see you, Derek. Thanks a lot. And terrific. We will see everybody else on the next Last IT Podcast in the World episode. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.